Alright everyone, it's that time of the month again. We have a new format, we have a new set, Phantom Nightmare, and therefore I'm once again joined by our beloved Icentrix, aka Philip, moderator, all-time, all-around genius of the Yu-Gi-Oh game. Thank you, how are you, Philip, today?
I'm feeling great. I'm hyped to just like talk about some Yu-Gi-Oh now, like seeing which decks are good, which decks are not as good as people might hope they are.
Yeah. As per usual, it's just a big discussion. Be ready for probably roughly an hour of Yu-Gi-Oh content, talking about all the decks that you can already see on the screen, ranking them in our tier list system, and maybe that helps you to figure out what to play for. For example, YCS Las Vegas, which is about to come up. So definitely listen carefully as we dive right into the action with the first deck on the list being Rika. Of course, this is a European stream. We have to start with Rika, right? I mean, there's Jasmine on the artwork, and they have gotten more Arrow Mage cards now. So is it even still Rika, or is it more Arrow Mage now at this point?
So the thing is, I feel like we will never see Rika going from plant decks. But I don't know if they still play a bigger like San Avalon package, because that one was also hit on the Lost Ribbon limited list. But I don't want to talk too long about plant decks, because I'm, first of all, not a big expert. And second of all, after reading, I didn't feel like the cards will shake up the meta completely.
No.
Which will completely backfire when the next European event is, I'm sure. But I would put them into Rogue, I'll be honest with you.
I don't even want to discuss it. Rogue is probably where this belongs. I've seen, like, on the first weekend of Phantom Nightmare at an Italian regional, I believe, Rika topping again, but it's it's as always. Like, there's rogue decks topping at every kind of regional. Just because one deck has one regional top doesn't equal, hey, it's a challenger deck in the meta. It will happen. Sometimes people do top with rogue decks. That's how it is. So Rika is a rogue deck. That's how it is.
I mean, there are just so many regionals by now, and also, like, rogue decks are not like they are unplayable, because then they would be maybe next time.
Absolutely. They are, sometimes they're even decent and just one step away from being a real contender in the meta game. But I think they are right now one step away. But we are going over to another deck in the meta game that has been around even longer than Rika, I would say. And that is Branded, or like roughly as long maybe. And Branded, on the other hand, I will just take over and already give you my 2 cents about it. Branded might be one of the best contenders against fire decks in the upcoming meta. Like, seriously, Branded looks pretty strong, because, I mean, we always know that, like, just engine-wise, this deck is insane. Like, it may be one of the best engines overall in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's like a big engine, and so many cards were added over time, so you can have different approaches to the deck, just going a regular clean 40 like Ben Kreutzkamp did at the Dutch Open, or going almost up to 60 cards as Dinka Bui did for the HDK, and all approaches are kind of working. And the thing is, this deck is still flexible as hell. Like, you can play in so many different ways with the deck. And a skillful Branded player, like, when I see someone entering the next YCS with a Branded deck and he's a good player, I'm making the call he's going to top, because this deck is just crazy, seriously.
Yeah, I need to agree with you. So the thing I feel like you need to realize is that we might be in a format where most people expect fire decks to be good.
Yeah.
But there are still decks that do things like a lot different to other decks. So you cannot always only compare the strength of different decks, but also like if they are like different to the deck in the format. And so I feel like if you're playing a fire deck, the big advantage of it is like being like a super good mid-rangey deck that also has like a lot of non-engine space. But if you want to like do something different in a meta, Branded might be your pick, because Branded is not a big like mid-rangey deck that has like a lot of non-engine space. It's like that's all on gas deck that can break boards better than any other deck probably.
Totally.
And that's why I also think it's a challenger deck, because it is like so different to the Snake Eyes strategy.
Totally.
It might be a pick.
I see it in Challenger as well. I think that's the perfect spot for it. And it will be, for sure, one of the decks challenging the top meta strategies. So that's the perfect place to put it. Next up on the list is Centur-Ion. And Centur-Ion is a deck where I have a hard time making myself decide on whether I want to have it in the high potential category or just in the rogue category. There was a time where I was really, really enjoying the success of Centur-Ion, and where I was thinking, hey, it looks like this deck might actually be one of the more higher ranked decks. But then, like the last couple of days, I feel like Centur-Ion just somewhat disappeared again because everybody just enjoys playing fire decks again. And therefore, I'm having a hard time. Like, do you have a certain call where you want to put it?
So I'm happy we are pretty much online here.
Okay.
Because I was scared when you said like you don't know if you want to have in high potential, because I thought like the next thing you say is Orange Challenger.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a lot too high, because in my
Agreed.
opinion, Centur-Ion in this format is just a rogue deck, because of the simple reason the Centur-Ion strategy really profits off if there are a lot of decks that do not have base for a non-engine. Because the problem, in my opinion, of Centur-Ion is it is pretty fragile to any sort of non-engine. So that doesn't mean like every hand trap stops the deck, but it means like if your opponent decides to either play like hand traps or board breakers, you can lose to both approaches.
Yeah.
You can lose to a hand trap approach, but you can also lose to a like board breaker approach. Because I also saw like people in the fire decks maining Cosmic Cyclone, which just stops your Calamity Lock, and then your deck is just not good enough. And that's why I feel like in this format, Centur-Ion is in the rogue category, but we might put it higher where if we like when we leave the fire format and go into a format where like more decks like go into a combo approach.
Yeah, I really like your reasoning there. That is definitely valid. And it's like I watched multiple Centur-Ion profiles, and I think one of the guys actually said, yeah, I'm losing to Ash, I'm losing to Valor, I'm losing to Imperm.
Yeah.
It's so crazy because usually you have like one card you're afraid of with your deck, but this deck seems like it can and might as well just lose to all of the interruptions if they have the interruption. If they go uninterrupted, it's somewhat of an FTK, we know that, but if not, it's a lot harder. And so I would say for now we just put it at the top of Rogue, right?
Yeah, I'd agree.
All right, now over to one of my favorite decks. I hate it.
Lampy. Take it off.
I hated it for so long, and now I'm a believer. I am one of the Exosisters. No, so Exosister, again, one of the older decks, not one we have to lose too many words about because it has been around for quite some time now. In theory, the fire decks summon from the graveyard or add back from the graveyard quite a bit, so that would trigger the Exosister cards. But still, if you just compare the power level of Exosister cards to the power level of those fire cards, even if you get to consistently exceed summon out those Exosister monsters, you're still losing. like they don't do enough then afterwards. So I want them in Rogue, but I could even understand if you tell me it's maybe next time.
No. Let me take off, because I will do a favor to all the Exosister enjoyers out here. I will not say your deck is good, because I might be lying. But the deck has like at least a few things why I could understand you play the deck this format.
Okay.
That does not mean it is a good pick. That just means I might be able to understand, because the deck itself banishes, which is pretty fine versus the Fire King deck, because it can banish the island, it can banish the Flame Birch, which would not trigger.
Absolutely.
Which is actually a fine thing, and it still can play Shifter. So if you're going first, I feel like it's not as easy for like the fire decks to break your board.
There you go. Up into top meta. Discussion ended. No.
I mean, if you're if you're called Steven Santoli, the deck might be in a high potential category, because he always like pulls off the deck. I don't know how. But I think like if you're like a normal Exosister player, your deck is maybe even in Rogue, and I would maybe even put it above Plants, because like the deck can play Shifter.
Okay. But honestly, happy with that. I will end the discussion here. I'm happy with that. Next deck on the list is, as you can see already, Fire Kings, which is obviously a fire deck. But please note, we wait. Do we still? Yeah. There's also coming up later on Fire King Snake Eye. So we're first of all just going to talk about Fire King without the Snake Eye cards. And honestly, I would say that, why would you play Fire King without the Snake Eye cards? There's just literally no reason. There's no reason for it. So I would say, if you try to play Fire King on its own, it's still just a rogue deck. And just the Snake Eye and the other cards, they just made it really, really, really good. So bottom of rogue, maybe even?
I would put it maybe above plants because I do not like plants, but
And fire burns
it's
plants. Yeah,
possible.
fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. So the sort of thing like is maybe from the pure power level, it could maybe even be a high potential deck, but I don't see like from the definition potential in the deck because the Snake Eye variant is just so much better.
Yeah, totally. Next up the list, we already just had a shifter deck on the list, and the next one is coming up right after, and it's Floowandereeze. And honestly, if you ask me, it's a better shifter deck right now. It's better than Exosister for sure, because it even is so cool. Like, you are completely taking out the Promethean Princess interaction with this deck as well, because you're never special summoning.
Yeah.
Please note that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I feel like the more of the problem with the deck is that like the Flamebirch can easily out the Empen.
Yep.
Which is like probably the most problem. But if you're drawn shifter, you're good. If you're starting, you're also probably good against the fire decks. So I feel like this deck might even be a high potential deck. It also got Swallow's Quarry.
Oh yeah,
which gives the deck more consistency. The thing there is like you need to ask yourself if you feel like you need more consistency or you need more non-engine. So that's the big deal with the deck in my opinion. Because also, if I remember correctly, Swallow's Quarry like searches a monster with the same level.
Yeah.
So you cannot just banish your bricks and add like Robina.
That's true. That's true.
It's more like pseudo. Also, yeah, I feel like the deck is pretty fine in the position now. You can play it. I would not play it because it's not a deck I like. It's not a deck I feel like the game plan is very good. But I mean, if you're like a Flunder enjoyer, your deck is pretty fine right now.
That's the thing. Like, everybody always jokes about Flunder and says, "Oh, Flunder, I hate Flunder." But at the end of the day, this right now is just ranking decks on their strength, on their position in the meta game. And we try to rule out emotions in that process, and if you just look at it objectively, Flunder is a decent pick coming up for this format. End of the discussion. End of discussion. Look, Mars even says Flu best deck, let's go in chat. We made someone happy. That's at least something. Okay, next deck on the list is Goti, and mostly people are referring to Runick Goti when they think about Goti, right?
So I thought about because I made the icon for it. I mean, I just copied the Goti of the DP thing, but I thought like also about like just putting a tip onto the artwork as well. But I also heard like people, the Goti community is very like undecisive about Runick Goti or pure Goti.
Shout outs to the Goti community.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, also like pure Goti can play the shifter.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't forget that. And if I feel like the support also like helps the pure Goti deck more, but I mean Goti cards are likely just worse than Runick cards. That's the thing.
Yeah, it feels like a good pair up between the two engines. I think they do work very, very well with each other. So just naturally, I think it's definitely good to throw in the Runick engine into the deck. Obviously, like you have the obvious downside of it, like hindering you from playing a lot of non-engine, because the Runick engine, as we know, is quite big. You can just basically not play any non-engine next to it, like maybe 3, 4, 5 cards, but not more. So if you say, hey, I need to play those kind of non-engine cards to somewhat exist in this format, I do understand. But the thing is, your main engine, your Goti cards, are decent against Fire King because they banish as well. So like, there is a good thing going on for them.
So I think it doesn't matter about which variant we are talking about, because I'll take that away. I don't think like Runick is maybe the best strategy right now. So I would put the Goti deck, not even depending on the variant, into the rogue category.
Probably, yeah, I agree. Probably right after Centur-Ion for the moment, I would think.
Yeah, it's probably better than Exosister, yeah.
Yeah, most likely. And I mean, like, Centur-Ion at least has those auto-win games where you can just mindlessly do your Calamity Lock uninterrupted and just win the game. And I think that is still a huge upside for the deck in general.
But if you're like a player who belongs to the Goti cult, like cook something up, I'm hyped for you.
Absolutely. I mean, like we said it earlier, but we are going to repeat it here. This does not mean your deck cannot top or even win a regional or top a YCS even. Like, the rogue category is that category where you always will find like 6, 7, maybe 8 decks of those in the top 64 of a YCS. That is happening consistently. But just like when we're talking about top meta and challenger, those decks more than likely are going to be like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe even more decks represented in the top cut of a YCS. So we're just ranking, and in the rogue category, it's always like a couple of those spiking into top cut, and then they might even win a YCS. We've seen it before, but yeah, you understand the system, I guess.
Yeah.
Next up the list. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Speaking about a deck, people would die for maybe. Like there is like a big upset in the German Yu-Gi-Oh community of people like coping hard on the Goblin bikers. And yeah, if you are part of this group of people, I wish you the best of luck because your deck is not good right now.
Yeah, if you are part of that,
for your dedication.
if you're part of the Goblin Biker clan, please make sure to comment underneath the video and let us know, because I need to know every single person. Maybe for potential featured matches in the future, who knows? Just make yourself known in the community. But yeah, first of all, not even rating how good the deck is. How is the name of the card Big Gabonga? Like that does not sound like a real Yu-Gi-Oh card name. Like, who thought of this? This is crazy to me.
Bro, but I love it. I love like the dedication of people for this archetype. Sadly, I feel like the deck needs some more pieces of support.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the thing. Like, yeah, I mean, like the mechanic itself is very interesting. Also, like attaching card from opponent is the best way of removal.
That's true.
It's maybe after banishing cards face down.
Agreed.
Which we will talk about soon. But yeah, I feel like right now you need more support. But I see a lot of potential in the cards because the deck maybe has one of the best searches in the game.
Oh yeah.
Like searching any Goblin card, and then you can even
That's
special
pretty
summon
insane.
if you detach an XYZ material. It's just Rhoda that can also like special if it wants to.
Yeah.
But right now the deck just needs some pieces because it feels like a very slow control deck without good control aspects.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, of course, if we somehow at some point stumble into an all-exceed metagame again, which I don't even think that's possible really anymore. Like, what should happen? Like, we would need a completely busted exceed strategy releasing, or like support for the biggest support wave ever for Purrely or something coming in. So I think like in that kind of a meta, this could be the deck that's the main contender as the main anti-deck against the top deck. But I never see this deck naturally getting the best deck by itself. Like, I don't think the engine itself is good enough at the moment. But so the question is, do we do the bikers a favor and put them into Rogue, or is it really just maybe next time?
I think it's a classic maybe next time deck because the deck itself, maybe next time doesn't mean like the deck's horrible. It just means right now is maybe not your format.
All right. Gabonga enjoyers, I hope you're not too harsh with us. I hope we can still go outside here on the street, or maybe we're getting, maybe we're getting into just some trouble with some biker gangs. But we'll take the risk for now. We'll take the risk. Next up on the list is Kashtira, and Kashtira is very interesting because it took quite some development from the last meta analysis that we did, because we were both kind of convinced that the deck is somewhat bad, and we don't really think the end field of the deck is good enough to be existing in the modern metagame and so on. But from there on, the deck took off like crazy, and it was all of a sudden like one of the top contenders in the metagame again, like mostly due to people, shout out to Luke Tyler, discovering the Cybers Kashtira variant. Like many people just switched over to that variant because the going first potential of the deck got upped so much by it. But just in general, Kashtira all of a sudden was at least a challenger deck for sure before Phantom Nightmare then.
Yeah.
Now the question is, what happens with Phantom Nightmare being around?
So I'll join the discussion on that one now, because I'm also not sure where I would put the deck specifically, because I'm like really not sure if the deck was maybe just I mean like to phrase it differently, I feel like the deck before was only good because we had so many more slow decks, which were like going also on like a very slow control aspect, didn't have like big amp-bot pieces. But now we have like the fire deck where I feel like you need very specific hands with Kashtira to even have a chance to play for them, because all the interruptions are super layered, and you need to have like 3 hand traps, two engine pieces to play through. And I don't know if you can pull that off often enough, because like there is the thing, like I mean likely 3 hand traps stop the Snake attack, but if you do not draw that many, I feel like you have already lost.
Yeah, I think like also we are at a point with Kashtira where drawing Shifter will basically decide the outcome of your match against Fire King. Because like against Fire King, sure, you could be drawing into like 1 or 2 non-engine, maybe hand traps or board breaking cards, but those might not even be enough. If it is Shifter specifically, yes, you may even be able to just OTK them right on the spot in the second turn. But all the other cards, I am not really sure about it. So I think the main question we have to ask ourselves here now for the breakdown, for the tier list we have in front of us is Kashtira in a better position than Flu? Because I think like those are like the 2 comparable approaches to shifter decks we have at the moment. So is it better than Flu or is it worse than Flu in the upcoming meta? I'm putting you on the spot. Better or worse?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, it's tough. I would say
I asked you a
worse.
question. Better or okay?
I would say worse.
Okay.
I would say worse right now. Because I just feel like, I don't know, it feels super tough for the deck to break. Also, the difference with Flu, I feel like, is if you are like playing the evenly match to break the boards, you lose a lot of value in Kashtira because your monsters cannot trigger their effects when they are attacking. While like Flu can just say end of main, go battle phase, end of battle evenly, and then play normally.
Fair.
That's why I would put it in top of Rogue, the Kashtira deck.
Okay.
But I would also see reasons to play that deck instead of Flu, but both decks feel super bricky in my opinion.
So I personally think that Kashtira also is a high potential deck in this format.
Okay.
But I would put it behind Flu as well, to be honest.
Okay, I could see that.
So just like that, are you down with this? Just having another high potential deck?
Fine, yeah.
And I mean, the thing is, we will have to see whether it is going to be continued as the Cybers Kashtira variant, or maybe the deck just reinvents itself once more, because that Cybers Kashtira invention was crazy, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's another one.
Hear me out. If you're a big brain and Kashtira player, cook Kashtira Dragon Rulers. I need that deck. I need a functioning Kashtira Dragon Ruler deck.
Please, someone in the comments, give us your Kashtira Dragon Ruler list. We need it. Okay, and now another deck we obviously didn't talk about yet on our last month analysis. And that is because the deck is brand new and super fresh. We have Voiceless Voice joining the meta game. And we have here Low being the representative of the Voiceless Voice strategy because it's obviously the best card of the deck. So this one is very, very interesting because I think if we wouldn't have Poplar and Promethean Princes and so on releasing in this set here at the moment, this might be the best deck of the format, like right away. Like if like we don't have the fire decks, this could be the best deck of the format, low key.
I think it's not that easy, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that easy, but I still believe this deck right now is definitely a challenger deck.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like just the engine itself just generates super much advantage. And then you can just like play a lot of non-engine, which is and also you have like a lot of way to like develop the deck. Like I saw Nadir versions, I saw like which were also like the branded version, which is very interesting. I feel like because the deck itself then becomes like a sort of combo deck because you also don't need your extra deck that much, and or like just the pure variant. The deck itself, like the combo, reminds me a bit of what Mathmag did, where it's not super easy to interrupt it with normal hand traps. I mean, funny enough, the deck also like completely dies to one Bestial like Mathmag did. But I still think the deck itself is just very good because also the follow-up is pretty good. Like I completely underestimated like how good of an interruption is like Saravis on the board.
Totally.
Or like the Skull Guardian itself, because even if you're outed, like they often have like the prayers in the grave, or which how's it called? The ritual spell, which can just summon it back if you're outed.
Yeah. It looks really good. And I think you were kind of touching on it being a good engine as well. And I would totally not be surprised if at some point a mastermind deck builder just comes up with something that you don't think about on the first spot.
Yeah.
But like for example, Dinka Bui then all of a sudden entering a YCS with Voiceless Voice Phantom Knight, or like I'm just putting in a random rogue deck, but you know what I mean. Like I could totally see the Voiceless Voice engine being part of a super, super cool deck that is then all of a sudden top meta because someone just finds the right spot to put it together.
Yeah, and I would put it directly above Branded.
Yes, agreed. It's definitely a challenger
deck. I think the deck is just so good. I mean, maybe right now it is not the best deck, but I feel like the deck has so much going for it.
Yeah, it's definitely. I like, as I said, I think if we wouldn't have the fire decks, it would be the best deck. But we do have the fire decks, which we're going to talk about later on as well. So therefore, we can't really. I think we have to keep the top meta category kind of fire friendly, you know. So it will probably only be fire decks in the top meta, as it is the year of the fire. You know about that. Yeah. Next up the list, we have Mannadium. And Mannadium, again, is kind of interesting because... what do we think? So. Do we think Droll and Lockbird is a staple in everyone's deck in this coming format?
I think too many people are playing Droll and Lockbird, to be honest. Like, I feel like the deck is just like, it's not the right time for the deck, to be honest. Because of the existence of Droll and Lockbird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like when people are even main decking the card, obviously that kind of a combo deck is struggling like hell. But I think it will depend on that, whether people really think going the hand trap approach is the right approach, because we also saw a couple of people just leaning towards board breaking approaches. And like when people play board breakers, if it's not Dark Ruler and instead like Evenly and so on, it's obviously very bad against Mannadium. But
the thing is there, the out of many people, like people like think one of the best board breakers against
the fire decks,
Fire King, fire decks, it's Super Poly.
Yeah,
people believe that, and Super Poly completely screws you if you're playing Mannadium, because you effectively cannot play around Super Poly, except you're doing like a very bad board.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, that's always like the trade you have to give. Like when I'm playing around something, I obviously lower the potential of my field because I'm thinking about that one card, and then in case they have it. Yes, you kind of won a little bit, but you're probably still being able to be super polyed. And if they don't have it, you just made your field worse.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. I would put that deck at the top of Rogue.
Wow, that's crazy.
The spot where I believe it belongs to.
I think that's very, very hard, very, very harsh on it, but I probably can see it. Yeah, I probably have to agree.
Yeah. Also, shifted decks like also being in the format just hurts Mannadium so much.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, next up the list, we have Orchest.
Yeah.
So this deck has been around the last time we did the analysis because Orchest basically playable again since the beginning of the year, as Harp Horror was released from the Forbidden section of the list. And the question now becomes, did it do anything?
Like I mean, it topped a few events.
Yeah?
Yeah, not a lot, so the thing, I'm always like super unsure what to think of Orchest, because just in my head it sounds so good, but practically I then immediately see like the disadvantages of the deck. So I think the biggest advantage of Orchest is like that it does play very, very good under Draw and Lockbird. It's always like you activate Msadi, like search a sacrifice, draw a card, and then you wouldn't even want to search for the rest of your turn.
That's true, yeah.
So your opponent is effectively hand looping himself against Orchest sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, people with preparing so much for fire decks might also prepare for Voiceless Voice a bit, and then they might play Bestials, and then you are screwed.
If people play Bestials, just don't play with deck. Yeah, true.
Also, Shift screws you. Also, sometimes Ash and Harp Horror ends your turn. I don't see a reason right now to put the deck above Rogue.
No way we put it above Rogue. The question is just where in Rogue do we put it? Is it just at the end of Rogue and we are not really thinking it has any potential, or is it more one of the promising Rogue decks we see?
I think it's better than a lot of Rogue decks. I might put it behind Centur-Ion, or like between Centur-Ion and Goti maybe.
Yeah, that honestly sounds like a good spot to put it.
Yeah, because Orchest has proved it can top also in multiple numbers, which Goti has not and Exosister has not.
That's true. Absolutely. I do agree. Next up the list, shoutouts, of course, to Dinkang Pham, who now has found a new pet deck after his Sprite decks. He's now a full Purrely enjoyer and plays it wherever he can. And I think he's still going to play it in the upcoming format. where I'm not sure whether that is that good of a decision, to be honest. Like, do we think Purrely can really do well in the fire-dominated meta game? I'm
I
struggling to believe
think
that, to be honest.
I think it's tough,
Yeah.
but I would still believe the deck, just theoretically, is a interesting and good pick
Okay.
because of the reason it is mostly. So it was always the case that Purrely needs specific side deck cards to be countered, and I don't see people citing a lot of Purrely hate right now,
Sure.
which benefits the deck a lot.
Yeah.
The deck itself can quickly lose to 2 hand traps, which is bad, but if you're playing like a field spell heavy version, you can like out the most like most of the prominent hand traps people are playing like right now, besides draw, which hurts you,
Yeah.
are like Imperm, Veiler, Nip, Ash, and those 4 are very mid against Purrely as long as you don't draw multiples. And so I think the deck can be a challenger deck at the bottom of challenger, but I could also see you saying it's more like a high potential deck, because I don't think it's as bad as Rogue, because I feel that the pick itself is interesting and can be good.
Yeah, I do agree, like, where you want to position it. It's for me definitely between challenger and high potential as well, and I still haven't made up my mind about it just yet either. So like, give me one really good argument for playing Purrely in the upcoming format.
So in my opinion, the biggest argument is probably the field spell, because of a lot of interruptions go through targeting, like also Promethean targets.
True.
Which like is turned off by the Purrely field spell, and the Noir is still very hard to out for a decent number of decks.
Yeah, and then a negative argument though is being immediately brought up by chat. The fire decks usually just play Kurikara, and Kurikara is searchable for the fire decks through Snake Eye Ash, just simply. So that's a huge downside, right? Whenever they want, they can just search out Kurikara, so your Noir is like way less likely to stay on the field.
But I'll be honest with you on that point. I feel like you can like play a lot differently with Purrely if you're expecting Kurikara, because like how I think you should have also done it like in Master Duel when Kurikara was around a lot. You should wait with your Noir for as long as possible, and then try to use like all the shuffles in like one moment.
Fair,
because if you're then like having like also Kurikaring a Noir which has only one effect is also not as good for you, because they will add back 3 names, and if they have field spell, they'll also add back special back a Purrely name.
Fair, yeah.
And the deck can also play like a decent amount of non-engine. I feel like if people are expecting Kurikara, the Purrely deck is better into Kurikara than people think. Yeah, but yes, you cannot sit like on Noir and just wait for your whole life. That does not work.
For sure. So, I mean, it's always about how you play a certain deck, and I think Kang always tries to point that out as well, that it's like a lot of people have been playing Purrely wrong, and you just have to approach it differently in a different environment that we're in right now. And I mean, basically, you can say that for every deck, but of course also for the Purrely deck, and therefore, you gave me some good arguments there, so I want to have it in Challenger, honestly. We'll put it up there.
Yeah, I think so. I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested about the next deck we are talking. Because like also like all Raidraptor enjoyers, type something in chat. I know you are there.
Raidraptor lovers.
Because the Raidraptor community, if you want to call it like that, is bigger than I expected.
Maybe they also just got so many more new peoples into it, but like everybody all of a sudden is talking about Raidraptors. Be it, I open Instagram, I open X, everywhere there is Raidraptor stuff. Like when I posted the new Raidraptor support when it was like released, like in the openings, that picture went almost viral on social media because everyone's like, "Oh, Raidraptor!" Like, why do we enjoy Raidraptor so much? This deck was literally a turn skip turbo deck for the entirety of its existence. And now all of a sudden, everybody is so much in love with it.
No, I'll tell you why people are in love with it. Because they are the Raidraptor player. They are not the one playing against it. And playing a heavy combo deck, you feel very powerful comboing off.
I like Hyper Atomus take in chat saying Raidraptor is XYZ Blackwings, and it's kind of true. It's kind of true. It's having the same cult to it. But yeah, now realistically, we have to say there are great support cards that came out for Raidraptors. Like that definitely is support that a lot of other archetypes in the game would be wishing for right now. And I even got told by a couple of Raidraptor enjoyers, it's not hard to find them nowadays to talk to them, that you don't even go for turn skip turbo anymore. I think that is not even the approach anymore, which is surprising to me because skipping turns seems like a decent thing to do, but apparently you go for a big Raigeki now somehow.
No, I think the idea is to just set up multiple towers. So you set up 2 to 3 towers, which cannot like your opponent is struggling to out multiple towers because often one is hard enough, and then likely the deck OTKs. I think I'll give you one favor, like Raidraptor plays. I think your deck is very interesting right now. It is an interesting pick. I also say that because I pulled like a Starlight Falcon.
I sent Vix up in the comments.
But I feel like the deck's interesting, but also I'm biased because I'm like one of the OG Raidraptor players. I not only played Raidraptor cards in Kashtira, which is not a Raidraptor deck, but I played them. You don't take that away from me. I'm a Raidraptor player. And also I tested the Kalyuya turn skip deck before.
Okay. So
I mean
that's all fun and interesting, but like we could tell all those stories about all kind of rogue decks as well. So what does Raidraptor what does Raidraptor make not a rogue deck?
So why I say like it's more interesting than other decks is because like this whole full combo approach has shown that it's often good into not like below hand traps. And I also think that the Raidraptor strategy is fine against Nibiru, which is one of the below hand traps we play. I'm not deep enough into plays so that I can say like Droll is not a problem for you or Droll is like instant loss.
Yeah, chat is discussing it at the moment too. Yeah, some people are saying, hey, it just kills the deck, and other people are saying, hey, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, and so I feel like the biggest problem with Raidraptor is probably that cards right now can out it still. Like I don't know like all the outs, but like the first one that comes into my mind is Ambler Whale like pushing itself for attack, and then you can just run over them. Also like the Labyrinth matchup I think is pretty much unplayable with the Ruma Karma kind of making you Senti monsters.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's like probably a problem, but still I think like the deck is interesting because of its merit being like very different to other decks.
Oh, Gnogat is saying that the towers has 5k attack. Okay.
Oh, it has 5k attack. That makes it a lot harder for Ambler Whale to out.
Yeah, that's
but not
true.
impossible. But not impossible.
So honestly, I think this is one of those decks where I can see myself putting it into high potential. I personally don't really think engine-wise or deck-wise it really is on the same power level as Kashtira or Flu, but I think it has that interesting aspect to it where you cannot really tell yet, and therefore it having potential in a way that you just don't 100% know yet how it's going to be and how it's going to perform.
So I think like high potential is like the perfect place for it.
Yeah.
Because it might also just go like deep down into like the back of Rogue. But I at least see like people performing good in a tournament where the environment is perfect for your deck.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. It has to prove itself now, of course, and I can totally see it being in the back of the Rogue in our next meta analysis, but I think we can give the Raidraptor enjoyers a chance. We can give them the high potential spot for now. So Raidraptor enjoyers, prove us. You need to now top regionals with it, so we can say, yep, we saw it coming. We saw it coming. Okay, next up on the list is the deck that in the last format basically was the best deck next to maybe Fire King and a couple of other decks because the format was not that linear. We had many decks at the top, and it being Rescue-ACE. So Rescue-ACE, of course, can now also be played with Poplar and Promethean Princess, obviously, too. So the deck got support, but still, I think it's not the main star of the show anymore.
the thing is, I gotta interrupt you on that because I feel like, I mean, yeah, Princess is good for the deck, but also not super insane. But I feel like the Rescue-ACE cards, they don't synergize super well with the Snake Eye cards. Also, like with Poplar, because like going into all those Snake Eye combo lines, I don't feel like that really. First of all, doesn't like let you get with the Rescue-ACE cards into some super crazy stuff, but also you're just increasing the amount of bricks in your deck by a lot. It's crazy because all your spells and traps are already like bricky for you.
Yeah,
I mean,
brickish.
not all, of course, not the emergency is not a brick, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you really want to like pack a lot of stuff from Phantom Nightmare except the Princess into the deck, and then it just feels like the left behind fire deck of the format. And then I have like a hard time asking myself where I want to put it, because of course from the power level it's a challenger deck, but I really don't see a reason to play Rescue-ACE instead of a Snake Eye deck.
Those are big words, my man.
I really don't see it, and that's the problem I have with the deck. Because let's be real, like the advantage of Rescue is having all those bricks in its deck was that the deck pretty much FTKs if Turbulence goes through.
Yeah.
Because they get a lot of advantage of the traps. But right now, if the normal Snake Eye Fire King board gets through, you're also not breaking that. So where's the difference to other decks? I don't see it.
Yeah, I think like one thing that I would somewhat point out is that it is kind of better into Nibiru, I feel like, because you can set 4 because before Nibiru even resolves. I think that is somewhat decent at least.
But I'll tell you, if you were just going against the Fire King deck for like Nibiru, the Fire King deck will still put up a board.
True.
Yeah. It's not like that, and that's the thing I see with Rescue-ACE right now, where I feel like it has like a pretty tough spot right now, and so I mean, we will not put the deck in maybe next time.
No, obviously not.
But the deck feels like it is that kind of deck right now. So if like the Snake Eye package, like let's be completely hypothetical that Snake Eye Ash will move to the Forbidden section, just hypothetically, then the deck surely becomes like the best fire deck again. But right now, I just feel like not playing the Snake Eye cards is a big disadvantage if you're a fire deck.
Okay, so you want to still have it in Challenger then, or do you want to even go below Challenger?
I think it's still a Challenger deck.
Yeah,
just from pure definition. Maybe it's even still the best Challenger deck. So I see a reason to put it like anywhere in like top meta Challenger, or maybe not. I see like a reason to put it anywhere there. But I would likely maybe go to like bottom of Challenger, just because I think like people will not play the deck at all.
Okay, you know what? We'll just put it bottom of Challenger.
Yeah. So yeah, the deck itself is better, but I don't see a real reason anyone will play Rescue-ACE.
That's the thing for sure. Like you summarized it very, very well, that it definitely still power-wise is a decent engine and everything, but just people probably don't find a reason to really go after it. And there is at least like, if you play Flu, for example, you have a very easy reason for it. You have like, hey, I'm countering the meta. I'm playing Amped, which is good versus the fire decks, and I'm playing D-Shifter, which is good versus the fire decks. But with Rescue-ACE, you're like, hey, I'm playing a deck that has engine-wise good potential in the meta, but I may as well play the other fire decks because it's basically the same, just a little better. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also not like any budget reason to play the deck, because if you're committing into like a Diabolic Ranger, you might as well just pay the extra bucks to play the best deck.
Yeah, okay. All right, so next on the list, we go over to a couple of Runick decks. First on the list, we have Runick for Hire. Just I think we can quickly talk about the general position of Runick decks, I would say. Do you think Runick as an engine is positioned well into the fire meta?
I have a big question mark with Runick's decks right now, because I'm like pretty unsure if I feel like board breaking with Runick cards is good enough. And so I would not play one of the classic Runick decks right now. I feel like the only Runick deck that might have potential, because it's unexplored, is the Runick Snake Eye stack.
Okay, yeah.
because it can play this broken ass Snake Eyes Ash engine where it breaks through. So because like I mean there are a lot of different Runick variants, and if you're like a Runick enjoyer, you can still play those decks. They will be good,
Sure.
but I don't know if they will be like good enough to even like tackle the top meta, because there will be just games where Snake Eye pulls off, has super layered interruptions, and you have just lost.
Yeah. Like also you with Runics, you don't really have, for example, Striker has a Shard Cannon, so they have a way to interact with the graveyard, but like
Yeah.
Fire King is very, very heavily centered around the graveyard,
Yep.
and then you only have interruptions on the field, and you cannot really do anything against Promethean Princess and so on. Yeah, I get what you
And
mean.
also your non-engine space right now is pretty much 0.
Yeah.
So like even if you have like 5 or 6 slots, you will often enough have to play with pure engine into boards, which sucks a lot
Seems
against Snake Eye.
rough. Yeah, it seems
Yeah,
very rough.
because you
So,
need some. And also one thing I want to add as well to the Runick for hire deck is people are likely or are already siding cards for the Labyrinth matchup, and like belling Donna hurts a lot.
yeah, that's true.
Bell on Donner is pretty rough. So yeah, like to summarize it, I would put the Runick for hire deck into the Rogues category, like probably above Orchest.
Yeah. Yeah, that
I would put
seems good enough.
I would put the Snake Eye variant into high potential because I'm very, very interested what people can cook up with it.
Another situation where we don't know whether it could be good, but there is the potential for it. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, because I also like tried figuring out some lines, and they are very interesting. Like
For
it's
sure.
like it's like the pure Snake Eye deck with like the Jet Synchron stuff, but you can do so different stuff if you're like having the resources of Hugin being a level 2, Gary being a level 4, and Sleipnir being a level 9 as example. And you can also like send the Fountain with your Snake Eye cards and add it back with Gary to get it off another time.
Yeah, and now let me take over because the last Runick deck we have on the list is Runick Stardust, and it's the best deck of the format, ladies and gentlemen. We'll put it up there. No, I told Icedrix we need to include this one because this is the deck that I'm personally enjoying myself right now. But I'm like, it's not on a competitive level. I'm just having fun with it, and I think it's a fun deck to play. But obviously, it's even worse than the other Runick variants because Bestials right now aren't even good because the matchups that they are good against getting fewer and fewer because Tear is less popular, Labyrinth is less popular,
Yep.
Unchained is less popular, so there's not even really a reason to play those Bestials anymore. At least there's Voiceless Voice, so you could make if you have a local where every person plays Voiceless Voice, go ahead and play this deck. I'm telling you, you will be having a good time. But until then,
It's a maybe next time deck, yeah. It is a maybe next time deck.
I will put it before the Goblin Bikers, though.
You may put it before Goblin Bikers, yeah. But yeah, I mean the deck itself, it had like interesting and cool combo lines, but I don't see a real reason to play it right now.
Probably.
But talking about decks, I see a reason to play right now. We have the perfect decks for it up here, which are Snake Eye Fire King and Pure Snake Eye.
Yep, I right away moved them on top of the meta. And there is no discussion about it because this was already the case in the OCG. Already on the first weekend now, we saw that it's also performing in the TCG. And Snake Eye Fire King, definitely the more prominent variant. But honestly, hear me out. I think over time, pure Snake Eye might even overtake. I'm having a soft spot for pure Snake Eye, and I think it's really, really decent. And I could see this deck even overtaking the Fire King Snake Eye deck at the end of the day.
That was the thing I wanted to ask you. Like you put both of them like on top, but which deck you think is better? I think by now that the Snake Eye Fire King deck is the clearly better deck, but not by a big margin.
Yeah.
Because I just think like with a card like Kirin, I'm not talking about the Magic Spec Kirin, I'm talking about Fire King Kirin.
Yeah.
The deck just has like so much more potential because layering your interruptions is a lot easier with place of adding back the Kirin, where you have like the Kirin in hand, the Garunix Engrave, Promethean Grave, and like some interrupt on the field with IP. It's very tough to just break these cards, where I feel like it's easier to break pure Snake Eye boards. And
Fair.
also the Fire King engine feels like it plays better for hand traps. And
Mm-hmm.
right now we are like at a very weird spots, because I also saw people like dropping the Snake Eye deck because they said like it's like very weird right now because you just often just lose to multiple hand traps.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're at this gamble situation where people are just like looking at their hands saying like, yeah, I got 3 hand traps, and as a Snake Eye player, you're like, yeah, okay, I cannot play through it.
Yeah.
I feel like you have a better chance of playing with Fire King through it.
Yeah, I get that. I think one thing going on for the pure Snake Eye deck is, and I mean, it's just a niche argument, but the deck actually right now is playable in Master Duel. So people can actually actively playtest the deck in Master Duel already, which is like for the first time ever that is possible. So I think it's kind of fun to just play the same deck in TCG and in Master Duel at the same time. So I think people might just make that connection and might make that sacrifice of having the same deck in both instances. So I could see that being a thing.
So I want to add something to this pure Snake deck, because I also see reasons to play that deck. It's not like when I said like I don't see a reason to play like another Runick Variant than XY or something like that. I just feel like the advantage is like you need. So the deck has more space, because the Snake Eye Fire King deck just adds a lot of cards you don't really want to draw. I mean, they are not hard bricks or so, but you don't really want to like open stuff. Like you don't want to open the island because you just prefer Sergeant of Pawnics.
It's funny, like you actually you almost don't want to open any of the Fire King cards, right? Almost all of the Fire King cards are basically bricks. It's kind of funny and kind of hilarious.
But the problem I see like is that you need to find a level 1 fire monster that is better to special off than Fire King Pawnics. And Fire King Pawnics is so custom with like the Sanctum or so, getting you like extra cards you can just send off, that it's tough, because I don't know if like special summoning Jet Synchron is the thing you can really do. I saw people like playing around with stuff like Magician Souls. With like Rare After, which is also interesting. But I don't know if that is good enough. And so I think like the Fire King deck by now is better, but you might find a way to play Snake Eye Pure to overcome the Fire King deck.
Yeah, I think over time this might be developing into the best deck, because it's just, at least from my personal feeling, the more versatile deck when it comes down to deck building. Like you have more options when you're going into the deck building process with pure Snake Eye, which makes sense because you don't have to include another engine into your deck, of course. So that's where I can see this being the thing. And but like I think it's undisputed and obvious that those are right now the best 2 decks of the format.
Yeah, and they are the best decks by a mile.
Yeah,
I'll say that. If I was able to, I would like put a whole tier between Top Matter and Challenger, which is just called like difference.
Skill difference, okay.
I mean, it's just different,
Yeah, I think we will actually not even, like, we don't even need to put another one in there, but we will be dividing the Fire decks and Dragon Link by quite a margin, because I believe Dragon Link will go down quite significantly on the list. And shoutouts to all the Dragon Link enjoyers. I will make it short. You are now Rogue deck enjoyers.
Bro, I'll tell you. I for a second I thought about even putting it into maybe next.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It actually won a regional last weekend in Italy. I don't know how, but it won a regional. Yeah, I don't know how. I saw the deck list, but it was all Italian card names, so I stopped looking at it.
I saw where you put Dragon Link, and I think you're even being too generous. I would put the deck behind Exoshifter.
Okay, I like that.
Because this
it's probably
right
even
now,
worse than Fire King, to be honest.
Probably, but at least there is a reason to play Dragon Link, because there are Dragon Link cats out there. Well, it's crazy. It's crazy how big the downfall of this deck was in the last month.
That's true. There's no real reason to play this deck anymore.
Yeah. And talking about the downfall of a deck, we have Tearlaments up next.
Yep, we were already like anticipating that this deck would be performing badly in the format starting January 1st, when we like had a big shakeup of the new Forbidden and Limited list. And then we immediately kind of got corrected by it winning the German Open. But let's be real. Shoutouts to our man Drizzles, of course, for winning the German Open. But after that, the deck did nothing. Like 1 or 2 tops here and there, but the deck really, as we anticipated, was not doing a whole lot anymore.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, this deck is a rogue deck by now to me.
Whoa,
I mean,
that's crazy.
the deck. I mean, it's okay if it pulls off, but I don't feel like it really pulls off enough. I mean, I would put it at the top of rogue, to be clear. Not like at the bottom of that, but I don't see real crazy potential in it because also I feel like people will figure out that the best way to counter voices is maybe to remove the low from the graveyard.
Yeah.
And if you're like removing a light monster from the graveyard, there are cards that can remove light monsters and dark monsters from the graveyard. Also, DD Crow, a card decks like Flunder can even search DD Crow quite easily.
Funnily enough, Chet actually just immediately saying, "Hey, it won the only YCS we had this year so far." And true, yeah, it won the remote YCS as well. And like also Paulo Gonçalves won a big regional with it too in Brazil. So I think just results-wise, we cannot put it into Rogue, to be honest. I think they like still had those major successes that it's a little tough on them to put them into Rogue, but I would probably also go at the bottom of high potential, to be honest.
I mean, let's be fair, it's like a Latin American remote YCS.
Sure.
So it's not the biggest event. I don't know how the participant numbers were, to be fair.
Around 300, something like that.
Yeah, okay. That does not take anything away from someone winning with it.
Yeah.
But that also doesn't show to me that Tearlaments is a really, really strong deck right now. That also is not the case for me because like what do they still play top 32 or do they play top 16?
Top 32 it was. It was top 32.
Top 32 because like getting through Swiss with a deck like Tearlaments then is easier because like every 10th player tops per definition.
Yeah.
And then you only have to go like 5 rounds or so like getting, it sounds hard, but getting lucky with the deck. Because the deck still has like a big point of it being a Gamba deck.
Yeah, so
but it's okay with me to put it into high potential. So
yeah, bottom of high potential I don't think is that bad. Next up the list, again, another weird one. And there we have Unchained. And like,
yeah,
Unchained already was weird with the new list, of course, with it being the limitation of Shavara, but like, I feel like some people, for example, Daniel Hartmann and also Nico Stierkamp, tried to still make the deck work, and they had success with it, but it more or less felt like them just trying to hold on to the deck with all the power they have, but not really them believing it is the best deck or anything. So I just don't think it's that great anymore at the moment.
So the only thing I feel like is that your fire matchup is from your interruption wise better than maybe some other matchups because destroying Unchained cards is always good for you.
True.
Also, it does not destroy itself. It like Soul of Rage and Soul of Anguish, they link with your opponent monsters.
That's
which
fair,
is an interesting way of interrupting. But still, I don't think the deck is better than a rogue deck. I feel like we will see the deck like getting a spot where like with the limitation of Shavara, it is more like an engine to every Fiend deck. Because Unchained Soul King of Yama is just so custom as a card. Like being able to be made with 2 Fiends and then like adding your important pieces or so, that's just crazy good.
Yeah.
And we saw the cards being put into Yubel, we saw the cards being put into Labyrinth, and we also will see the cards being put into Infernoid once the support is out.
Stop the cope.
So, I mean, it's likely just an engine.
And I
think the pure deck itself might even be better than Runick decks in the rogue category, might even be above the hard power, but I don't think we can put it much higher.
Than rogue.
If you would put it, then rogue,
we agreed.
Put it much higher than rogue.
I think we have to put it in front of Exo, I believe, but not higher than that.
Okay, I mean, it's definitely in front of Exo. I also see reasons to play it instead of like Goti and Runick, but I also see reasons to play those over.
I will put it in front of Goti. Okay. So next up, Vanquish Soul. Yeah, I want to keep it short with Vanquish Soul. Plus,
that deck is horrible. That deck is horrible.
That's also
away from you.
That's your short version of telling it. But I mean, on the plus side, you can play Dimension Shifter. There you go. Okay. On the minus side, the engine is not strong enough to compete.
Yeah.
Still, it's a rogue deck for me. isn't
Yeah, I mean,
it?
but it's a very mid-rogue deck. I mean, we always put the deck like next to Centurion. I think we would be too generous putting it
Yeah,
next to Centurion right now.
agree. I would rather
So,
put it next to Exosisters, to be honest.
yeah, I'll agree with that. But I mean, it hurts my soul to put a deck that low, but it's just correct. It's just
Yeah, for
correct,
sure.
likely. Because also like I in another meta-analysis I said like the deck has the advantage that it doesn't lock you and you might be able to play different engines. But the more you see the deck, the more it feels like you're more limited to your attributes than I thought initially.
Yeah, true. You always have to kind of sequence your plays so that your stuff
Yeah,
in hand works out and so on. Yeah. It's not that like at first I also
yeah,
thought it will always be all like everything available to you in terms of hand effects, but it's actually not, no.
yeah. And the deck I included myself, we are talking now about, and it is Volcanic. And I mean, Volcanic players, please, I'm sorry, because I started this so high, but I will not put the deck at a top spot or so. But I wanted to
Such.
add it because there is a Volcanic FTK right now
There
with
is.
Emperor, Geonator Transfer. If you didn't know, there's also like a Snake Eyes FTK with Blaze Phoenix being looped by Promethean Princess and Zelantis.
Yep.
But also, like, I think the Volcanic deck itself is better than people might think it is in the first spot.
For sure.
But I still don't believe we can put it above Rogue.
Ooh,
But it is
okay.
one of the more interesting Rogue decks, I think.
I personally actually think it's a high potential deck. It's one of
Okay,
those
I mean,
decks
I can see that.
where people are able to do crazy stuff with. They can even FTK if they want. So game 2 and game
Yeah,
3, when they go first, they might have some auto wins because of that, just because they can pull off
yeah,
the FTK. And I think when we are playing in such an interactive format where Fire King Snake Eye basically can play through every field in the world,
yeah,
having the option to FTK is pretty insane.
yeah. So like because I saw it in chat, like asking for Blaze Phoenix or Geonator. So like how the FTK itself works is that first of all, like with Volcanic, from what I remember, you have like your smaller burn effect
Yeah.
itself, and then you set with your Emperor, you set the, I don't know if it's Eruption or so, but it's the burn
It's
trap
the trap
of
that burns,
Volcanic.
yeah.
It's a new one there because there are two traps, and the trap itself says like that you can choose like a pyro monster on the field, and if it's your monster, you inflict half its attack as damage, and if it's your opponent's monster, you inflict like its whole attack as damage.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the thing what you're doing is like you're giving your opponent the Emperor, so that your opponent has like a 3,100 attack monster, pyro monster, and so the trap targets it and your opponent takes 3,100 damage. The other damage itself comes from stuff like Volcanic special summoning a token on your opponent's field, which if it's destroyed makes 500 damage. They also
Yeah,
play, I think,
absolutely.
like the Awakening of the Process, which is funny enough, a not activated special summon from the deck.
True.
Where you go like Heater and like Paramount, and that's like how they burn. And Blaze Phoenix itself is not in this combo line, but it's in different Snake Eye lines, where Blaze Phoenix just says like as on a soft once per turn burns 300 damage for each card on the field, meaning like that you then can special summon it back of Promethean Princess and activate its effect again,
Yeah.
and can also banish it with Zelantis and bring it back.
It's a burn FTK at the end of the day. Like
Yeah.
this is not a Volcanic FTK combo tutorial now, but like having the option to FTK is pretty good, as I said, and therefore I think it's a promising deck that I want to have in high potential, and I might even argue with you whether I want to put it in front of tier, to be honest.
I mean, it's a fire deck, so we can put it above tier.
Okay, Year of the Fire. Let's go. Let's put it
Year of the
above
Fire.
tier.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to summarize how the FTK, because like FTK is always so different. The important thing is it's not like the standard Bish Balkan FTK.
That's true. Yeah, it's a bit different.
Never resolve. It's different, yeah. So you want to talk about the more competent deck now, or talk about Yubel first?
I want to talk about Labyrinth first. Let's go
Okay,
step by step.
okay.
And Labyrinth would have been one of the top decks in Maze of Millennium format. Like the first couple of weeks, like basically for 2 weeks, this was the best deck, maybe even in the format. And now all of a sudden, I feel like when I'm looking through regional top deck reports and so on, I feel like the deck is disappearing entirely. I feel like nobody is topping with Labyrinth anymore.
But I think the reason is because people have not figured out how to correctly play Labyrinth.
Okay.
Because honestly, I feel like we're at a situation where you need to play trap-heavy Labyrinth builds. Because I still see people like running around with their IKEA and Hand-Trap variants. I think those are completely dead. Don't think they are playable.
Okay.
But having cards like the Ruma Karma Cannon and also like the what's called like the Trap Trick variant, I see some merit to playing them because like a lot of the interrupts of, I mean, the 5K matchup is a lot harder than the pure Snaker matchup, to be clear.
For sure.
But I see like reasons to play Trap variant because you can play this like Jack Verma did at the HGK with the back check and stuff. And you can set stuff with arias like the Ruma Karma Cannon, where you like sometimes can even book like 4 monsters your opponent controls, and then they don't have space to continue playing.
Yeah, that's true.
They can also set cards like Different Dimension Ground and loop it, like the only for 1 turn shifter. And they have stuff like Rumpelteufel they can discard in your turn to prohibit you from going like Poplar's effect or special summoning Poplar.
You mean the Black Goat loves, huh?
Or the Black Goat. True. It's not Rumpelteufel. It's
yeah,
the Black Goat loves.
Yeah,
the goat. It's the goat.
It's the goat. Yeah. And I think you might totally be right, because that deck got some very, very, very good recent support. Because let's be real, like Transaction Rollback is an insane card. The question is just, have people adapted to the deck good enough just yet? You are saying they have not, and we still have to figure out different ways to play the deck. So that is kind of interesting, and I do see that, and maybe Dinkabui then comes out and plays a great Labyrinth deck again. He would, of course, be the main candidate for that. I have to mention him at least once in a meta-analysis.
I mean, I can tell you where I would put it. I would put it between Branded and Purrely, likely. I think that's the spot it deserves.
That's pretty high,
in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that high, because, as I said, the thing... Like I said in the beginning, the deck is the deck that does stuff completely different to other decks.
Yeah.
Which is the difference, like where I feel like Kashtira and Flu, even though they are different, they do things quite similar. Their game plan is shifter. Where like Labyrinth has like such a different plan, it can also like adapt so crazy to different things. Like you can play like the super trap heavy version with Heavenly Prison. You can play those trap trick variants. You can play the Unchained variant, which is also not that much explored right now. So I feel like the deck has room for innovation, and the deck itself is already good right now.
Yeah.
That's why I think like it's above high potential.
Yeah, true. I get it for sure. I like the recommendation by Gnurgat saying we should rename the last tier to Only Dinkabui Can Save It. I love that. We should do that from now on. It's a bit long though, so maybe it's not that great of a title for the tier, but I definitely love that. But I think Dinkabui would be the only person next to Astrodog that I could imagine saving Yubel players. Because Yubel, even though it topped the regional, and chat, we talked about it before, topping a regional doesn't mean it's a super, super good deck. Every deck can basically top a regional. Okay, Hyperatona says Yubel is kind of scary. Yubel is not scary. Like, there is support coming up, which is really good, but right now, Yubel is not scary. It's not a real deck. It's not supposed to be among the top decks of the format. No.
So there's only one application for Yubel cards right now, and that is branded players using it to super poly whole fields.
Yeah.
Which is funny. But that's not even good, I think. But it's an option. I would just want to mention it. The deck itself gets support, which might put it into the rogue category instead of maybe next time, because I'm taking that away. It's a maybe next time deck. The only game plan of this deck is to hope to get through with super polying the whole board, the whole field. And that game plan is very straightforward, and the plan Bs do not look super good, in my opinion.
Nope, I'm sorry. We have to disappoint not only the Goblin Biker Gang, but also the Yubel fanboys here in chat for today. We are putting both of them into maybe next time. But I mean, if you are personally then impressing us with a decent result with the deck, we may reconsider our opinion on it. But for now, I don't think that is happening at the moment. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. But yeah, that is it Philip, thank you so much for joining me again. I think that was a very, very fun analysis. This was recorded live on Twitch. So if you're watching this right here, right now on YouTube, definitely make sure to, for the next time, check out the live stream on Twitch. We're live on here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. A lot of streams are happening. My link to the Twitch is down below in the description, so definitely make sure to check that one out as well. And if you have anything to add, if you're missing your personal favorite deck on the list, or if you think we ranked one deck completely wrong, make sure to let us know in the comments down below as well. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and until